It's a delight to be here, and it's hard to believe that it's still been less than 2 years since the iPad was introduced. Our company started tracking publication-related apps in April of 2010, and we have now evaluated over 5,000. The panelists here today represent apps that are among the best of that group, and I think we're going to have a really interesting conversation today. Editors and creative directors face a dizzying array of choices when they decide what to put into their app. The number of available bells and whistles has continued to expand, and they're expected to support an ever-increasing array of platforms and versions. So here to discuss some of the issues, challenges, joys that they face is a terrific group. We have, first of all, Bruce Bell, who is sort of a consultant at Adobe who helps people who are on the cutting edge figure out how they can best embrace this opportunity. He's Senior Experience Design Manager. Anthony Cerretani, Deputy Editor Digital Director, Backpacker. Gael Towey, Chief Creative and Editorial Director of Martha Stewart Living Omnimedia. And Melissa Wiley, Director, Electronic Publishing of the National Geographic Society. We're going to start off with show and tell. My mother was a first grade teacher, so it comes naturally. But anyway, we're going to start with Anthony, and the editors are going to come up and talk to you about their apps and their trade-offs.
If we've got any sort of... There we go. Hi, everybody. My name is Anthony Cerretani. I'm the Deputy Editor Digital Director at Backpacker Magazine. So what I want to do is, I've got 2.5 minutes. 2.5 minutes. I wanted to give you a quick sort of overview of what we're trying to accomplish here at Backpacker. So very quickly, this is our adventure travel issue that we launched about a month and a half ago. Big, beautiful photo right on the cover, but if you want to meet one of the editors, here's our buddy John Harlan. No audio on this, but I want to give you a sense of sort of what it looks like on the overall scheme. Now, John, my buddy John, for a story we ran in this issue, he decided that he was going to circumnavigate Switzerland. So to give you a sense of what this entailed, he circumnavigated Switzerland, but in the process, he also broke bones in both of his feet, went home, and then turned around and came back. So I want to give you a sense of what his story looks like. This is our TOC. Going into John's story, we decided to do a couple of things. We looked at statistics around what our users wanted. 70% of them wanted to see both versions, both horizontal and vertical. And to accomplish something like this with this particular app, what we did was we said, OK, John, tell your story here. Let's give it a narrative feel, beautiful photography, but then let's turn it on its side, and let's give you a map execution of what the actual route looked like. So it went through and said, OK, here are your photos. Here's everything that he took along the way. Here's John climbing on a ridge traverse in the border of, yeah. I hiked 50 miles with John in Switzerland, and he just destroyed me. It was, he's one of those guys. So going back to interactive maps, though, that's another statistic that we looked at. 70% of our users, I'm sorry, the majority of our users actually said the most important thing to them was interactive maps, right above videos, photo slideshows. So let's look at another iteration of this here. This is Adventures New Zealand. So in this case, we looked at an itinerary where we said, OK, let's look at the chronological itinerary for how the whole trip is going to pan out. But then let's turn it on its side again, and let's look at an interactive map of both the North and South Island. Same sort of general philosophy, but planning trips embedded throughout, as well as photos. Oh, sorry. I'm going to turn it on its side. It doesn't like me. And then we've got videos as well. So let's look at the glacier in New Zealand. So great quick example of how we're sort of using the multimedia components of what's involved here. How am I doing on time? 30 seconds, maybe. So looking at another component of what people like to see from us, it's planning. So here's your adventure travel skills. Here's how to travel like a pro. let's go in and look throughout at the ways that we're sort of trying to deliver content that's very, very specific to this device. We always think about what is the mission of this content on this device, just as much as we think about what's the mission of this content in the magazine. So we've got our TSA special kit. Here's the best way to present that content in a way that says, all right, I'm packing up. How do I pack one pack and never have to check it? And then here's our editor expertise. So we've got some of the pros and some of our editors themselves kind of going in and saying, here's what you need to know, and here's how we're going to deliver the service to you in the best way. This is one of our senior editors giving some guide tips. So that's it. I can spend like 2 hours up here, but I'm trying to keep it at that. Thanks.
Morning, everybody. I wanted to, I'm Gael Towey, I'm from Stewart. I wanted to show you our cookie app. When the iPad 3 came out, our partners, Callaway Digital Arts, decided that we would completely redo, res up all of the images for the cookie app so that we could be one of the first to be recommended in the App Store. So these are all resed up images, and it's a little harder, I guess, for you to see on the screen because it has to pass through the same viewer. But when you're looking at it on the iPad, it really does feel as though it's almost three-dimensional. And when you are kind of cooperating with Apple, they treat you really well, and they've kind of surfaced us and our cookie app as one of the great apps to be looking for your iPad 3. We have, there are all these wonderful, now this is an app that we did individually. This is a standalone app. We also have our magazines in the digital apps, which we sell on the newsstand. I thought I'd show you one of my favorite I think that adding, oh my God. It's like being shot or something. I think adding sound, here you can hear a little bit of the ticking sound of a timer, and you watch it get baked. But adding sound was kind of a revelation for us when we started doing this. We've been doing moving covers since the very beginning when we started with what we call Boundless Beauty, which is our first app. And we've also been doing something the art department's been taking charge of what we call the well opener. So every month there's almost like a special little story that the art department works on. In this case, we hired an animator to create a kaleidoscope program. This is actually only one photograph with about 50 flowers in it, and she has bent it around these 8 pieces to create that kaleidoscope. And it's my view that, most people are, obviously with our magazines, we have a lot of video, the how-to videos for making recipes and for learning cooking techniques are very loved by our readers. But these little pieces of sort of delight are kind of an emotional gift that we give to the reader, and I think have great value in that way. I had downloaded a couple other things, but my iPad 2 doesn't work on this. Only the iPad 3 is working. So that's all I have to show you for the moment.
Hi, my name is Melissa Wiley. I'm with National Geographic, and I just wanted to talk to you a little bit today about some of the things that we think about at National Geographic magazine when we're converting our issues from print to digital. So for us at National Geographic, it's all about the storytelling experience. And similarly to what we do in print, we think about what are all the things that are available to us on the iPad that we can do to enhance our storytelling. You know, our mantra is always to enhance and never duplicate. We're never looking to create something in digital just for digital's sake. We really want to bring storytelling to the next level. So the first place you're going to see that every month is on our cover. We always try and bring something extra to our cover. In this case, we've just got a simple video sort of revealing the Titanic as you've never seen it before. We're going to bring you something new. We also try and bring this to our story openers. Again, just a really subtle animation, sort of revealing this, mystery and science that we're going to bring you around this story. The next focus for us is really a simple one, and that's around photography. National Geographic has this long history of sort of bringing the best in stunning photography from around the world. And what we've done here is really simple and just given our photographs as much space as possible on the screen. We've removed all the text from the screen. You can actually tap on this button in the bottom right-hand corner. Oops. And it's going to reveal the caption. And really what we're doing here is we're just letting our photography speak for itself. It's a really simple way to take this medium, which is known for reproducing high-quality images, and letting our photography shine. So then we come to the text of our story. And at National Geographic, a text story can run up to 4,000 words. So it's really a sit-down experience. You're really going to sit down and spend some time with your National Geographic magazine every month. And what we've done here is we've actually taken this text and we've contained it into one reading experience. So instead of swiping side by side as you do with the rest of the magazine, you're actually going to scroll up and down and get an opportunity to read the entire text of this story. If you swipe away from the screen, you swipe back, it's going to take you right where you left off. So then the next thing that we wanted to do for this particular story around the Titanic, which is bringing you some new sciences, new images that you've never seen before, is we wanted to build something that was really, truly special for the iPad, something that you're not going to get in print for sure, and you're really not going to see anywhere else. So what we're offering here is sort of a first ever three-dimensional new look at the Titanic, made up of thousands of high-resolution images. And what we did is we worked with our graphic artists to actually render about 230 different views of the ship. And what I'm able to do is swipe my finger across the screen and get a full 360-degree view of the ship at 3 different levels. So this is a view that's never been seen before. You're not going to see it anywhere else. You're certainly not going to get something like this in print. So we really felt this was something special that we could bring to the iPad. So then the next piece I want to talk about is video. We really feel video and audio is a real opportunity for us. For us, like I said, it's all about storytelling. It's all about the experience. We want to use the iPad to take our readers to those places around the world that we go to create our stories. And we really think that video and audio is an opportunity for us to take you there in a way that text and just photographs simply can't do. Like I said, it's really about enhancing the story. I'm never going to create something in video that's going to tell you what I just told you about in print. I'm really going to bring you something new and experiential. So what I've got here, this is the last thing I'm going to show, is a quick little video snippet from an app that we're releasing this week, National Geographic Adventure. And what we did is we went back into the archives of National Geographic and we searched for the best that we had to offer in adventure storytelling. And what we did is we reshaped that for the iPad alone. Our focus was iPad first. We weren't thinking about print and digital at the same time. We're really focusing on what is the best experience for the iPad. So what I'm going to show you here is a quick 15-second clip. It's our cover video. It introduces the piece. I'm not giving away anything that you're going to find inside the app, but I'm simply giving you a teaser, a taste of what you're going to get if you go on and read the rest of this National Geographic Adventure app.
Titanic in the middle of a top secret military mission.
So really quick, just a really quick hit, kind of, I think you get a sense just from looking at this of what this app is going to be like. It's very different from our monthly National Geographic magazine issues. And you know, this app was a really great learning experience. We took all of these things and forced ourselves to think about how can we make this for the iPad alone? How can we really condense all of these interactive experiences through video, audio, photos, you know, information graphics, and make these for the iPad alone? And then how can we take those learnings and apply them to our monthly magazine? So, you know, this was a really great experience for us, and I think we learned a lot about how you can shape your video, shape your audio, and condense it into this sort of curated experience on the iPad.
I want to point out again that these are all exceptional apps. And in our evaluative system, you're talking about the top 3%, 2%, 1%. They're not a representative sample, but they're fantastic. And thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Bruce, we haven't gotten to hear from you yet. So why don't you talk about how you suggest to your many clients how they should approach these decisions about what to include and how much is too much or enough or not enough?
Sure. I think the first point is we don't necessarily suggest what to include. You know, the goal of the platform is to enable storytelling, and all of these examples are amazing. You know, it's so cool to be up here as someone who helped pioneer the platform and see what's happened with it today. But you know, there are some key points around the user experience that we've discovered that will really help brands connect with the audience. And the first is really a concentration on usability. I know that that's easy to say, we want the app to be usable, but a lot of times we've seen in more inexperienced publishers sacrificing usability for editorial voice. And I think the goal here is really to integrate those two. A specific example of that is use clear calls to action to help indicate where certain interactive components are on the page. And you know, that's a really important one because we don't want to trick our readers. It's new for all of us, this tablet device, touch interactions, and standards are really still being formed. I think as an industry we're doing a wonderful job of doing that, but we still need to really cue the user in to how to use the app. We don't want to trick them. We really want a smooth conversation with them throughout. So that would be the single point that I'd like to drive home the most.
Yeah, and right now, to the point about there not being any standards, there is a huge range in approaches to navigation, and people like to think there's consistency, and there's some consistency within the Adobe or the Woodwing or various platforms, but across the whole range of apps, there really is not. And I think that it's so important to provide that guidance, and there's nothing more frustrating than tapping on something that's supposed to give you something extra and have it not work, or accidentally hit the page and suddenly end up somewhere totally different. A lot of learning opportunities. So now, in terms of how long you've been doing this, Melissa, I think National Geographic may have been out there first.
We were out there with Zinio on day one when the iPad was released. When the iPad 2 was released, we were right there with our first issue of the magazine in the Adobe tools, plus our first standalone app, which was the 50 Greatest Photographs from National Geographic.
And how has what you do evolved over time?
Well, it's really been about teaching the staff how to do this on a day-to-day basis. Our stories at National Geographic can take years to produce, and we have a staff that we work with that really become experts in that content. And so what we've focused on the last couple of years is actually teaching the staff how to take their stories from print to digital. And I think that's where we've evolved the most, probably since that first issue came out, where I was running around nagging everybody that they had to meet their deadlines and try and help people think about their interactive ideas. Now we have our editors actually coming to us, and there's more that we can do with. We were actually just looking at our May issue last week and cutting things because I started thinking, God, the file size is just going to be way too big. So that's where I've really seen the biggest change, is just this excitement from our staff to want to do more.
Terry McDonald spoke earlier today about the Swiss Army knife approach and not putting in too much. And Gail, you have innovated in so many different areas here, and I think that you've gotten it just about exactly right. But how do you do enough but not too much, given that you're managing all of these resources to a common goal?
You know, we've just been experimenting. When we first started, our first digital issue, which was a special issue just for the iPad, came out in November of 2010, which Bruce helped us on. And in that case, because it was a standalone issue, we were creating stories kind of around the functionality. We were experimenting with the functionality, and we would make a story that kind of matched that. We wanted to do scrolling, we wanted to do animation, and so on. So we tested all of that. And the stories actually were wonderful stories as a result. You know, there was a puff pastry story where you, and we created that story because in puff pastry things are wrapped, the food is on the inside and you don't know what's in there until you cut it open, so it's a kind of surprise. So when you tapped the picture, it automatically opened for you and you could see all the juicy, you know, bits coming out. Then when we started doing it for monthly, everybody was so excited. We were doing like 20 videos in one issue, but of course, after about 3 months, people were absolutely exhausted. And we couldn't really keep up, and it was costing too much money. So then we did like about 5 videos per issue. Now we're back to about 8 videos per issue, but it's just this kind of boomerang of just trying to figure it out, you know? And also it has to be appropriate. We're a how-to magazine, and we kind of feel like as a how-to magazine where you're where you're teaching people and you're giving service. The slideshows and the videos are so perfect for us because you can see exactly how to do it in the same way that you're able to show the path, you know, use infographics to show that path. So appropriateness, it goes a long way toward intuitiveness at the same time. If it's appropriate, it's probably also intuitive.
So Anthony, I was particularly interested in what you said about the consumer feedback that you got and how that drove some of your decisions. Talk to us more about that process.
Sure. So when we first launched, you know, we kind of took that tact of let's get it out there, let's really experiment, let's see what we can do. We did everything from 360 rotations of, you know, 14 different pieces of gear. We did all of these different things, and then we came back with an initial early adopter panel and said, we asked them a series of questions and said, what do you want to see? And that's really where some of the decisions came from. Number 1, interactive maps. Number 2, video. And then looking at the orientation scheme as well. Do you want to see it? It was actually funny. In one question, 50% said vertical, 50% said horizontal. And then in another question, 70% said both ways. So that right off the bat gave us some guidelines to say, well, let's go down that road. You know, and then it was really sort of taking very similar tacks here, where you're saying, you know, we're a service magazine. What is the best way of delivering that service? So look at every page. Our creative director kind of runs into my office every about 5 minutes. He's silent and he just shows up. And every 5 minutes, he's got a new idea for how we can deliver that service. So if it's video and it's slideshows, to show a location. If it's on-the-scene videos in Chile with our editors, teaching how to, you know, execute a certain skill, that's what we sort of embrace and go with. And we really lean on our staff quite a bit, you know, for their expertise, both in the field that they are professionals in, but then also, you know, when they're out in the field to collect that information and to make sure that it's consumable in a way that is on mission.
So the orientation issue is an interesting one, and in fact, we've seen a trend where initially a larger number of the high-quality apps supported both portrait and landscape, and over time there's been more of a migration to supporting a single orientation, and you made different decisions. Talk to us about how you made those decisions.
Sure. For us at National Geographic, we decided to go with landscape, and that is primarily due to our large-scale photography. We really feel that we need to shine in a landscape view just to let that photography shine. As far as why we chose not to go in both orientations, that's really a resource issue for us. You know, we want to do what we do really well, and we don't want to compromise that by forcing our staff to basically do double the work. I'm sure you know, it's 2 layouts for every single page. So it is a direction that we want to go in, but up until now, we've wanted to do all of our learning and get the app to a place that we're really happy with, and then take it to the next level.
And our decision was the same. We wanted to put our extra resources and a little bit of extra, teeny bit of extra money into actually creating content instead of just making the content available in both directions. And you know, that's just what we decided to do.
There's so many more questions I want to ask, and we have 2 minutes, and we're going to fill every second of that. But quick answers. How many platforms are you currently supporting?
3.
Gail?
3, iPad, Kindle, and Nook.
Melissa?
4. If we're counting Zinio,
If
we
we're
have
counting
if we're counting
that's-
Zinio, 4.
That's
Yeah.
4.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are your plans for the iPad 3 and the other titles that you currently have on, and all of the titles you
Res
have
up.
on? Huh?
Got to res up.
Yeah, optimize the workflow. You know, I mean, they're looking at it coming down the pike and trying to make as many efficiency changes as you can. You know, depending on how the workflow is going to shift based on what devices are in the market. And if it's 3 different iPads you have to support, you have to keep that in mind.
So currently, there are about 12 apps represented in this room that have optimized for the retinal display. And we're interested in seeing what the rate of adoption for that is going to be. But you have to create different versions for different devices, which is kind of scary.
Right. You have to, on the Adobe platform, we will have to create a bundle for the iPad 1, 2, and another bundle for the iPad 3. So it's going to be more work because the resolution for the 1, 2 is going to be different from the resolution for the 3. So we don't know how long that's going to take, but obviously it's going to have to be done.
So we're going to take a little bit longer. Bruce, what's next after all of this?
That's a good question. You know, all along we've considered this a stepping stone. We haven't thought that, you know, we've arrived at the ultimate digital platform for magazines. So some of the things that we've been thinking about all along are things like liquid layout, and that's some of the stuff that Adobe's starting to realize in CS6.
What do you mean by liquid layout?
So liquid layout, being able to create one layout and it adapts to whatever aspect ratio or resolution that you're viewing it in. So, you know, not necessarily cutting down on file size, although that's our hope, but really cutting down on a lot of the workflow issues that you know, plagues a lot of the teams that you guys lead. And I think that's the biggest one. And you know, it won't change from page to page on the device, but from device to device, it will adapt. So that's one thing that's next. Kind of the bigger picture, we've also been thinking a lot about different content types. Video is a big one. And how can we help optimize video experiences, both on the authoring side and the consumption side of things. And you know, thinking about content, you know, I think all of us in this room are thinking packaged issues. We're starting to think a little bit differently. I don't know how well that jives with
It's interesting.
editorial
I was on a
process.
panel, Gail was on it as well, with Robin Steinberg, who I think is still here. And Robin asked the question on that panel, when are you going to start thinking beyond issues? And it's a whole nother panel discussion. So thank you so much for your time today.